Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Assalamu alaikum, dear students. This session focuses on electronic media and sociolinguistics. I hope and expect by the end of this session you would be able to understand by definition what is electronic media and how does it relate to sociolinguistics and how does it have significance in sociolinguistic studies. Well, my dear students, to start with, what is electronic media? We can say that media that uses electronics or electromechanical audience to access the content is called electronic media. This is in contrast with the static media that is generally called print media as well. Well, there are so many different types of electronic media that are used. In fact, there is a huge variety. I would just share a few typical, standardized or traditional ones: television, radio, internet, smartphones, electronic display advertisings, audio, video, tapes, etc. Now, I would just like to talk about these in a couple of groups. As far as television and radio are concerned, they are traditional electronic media in today's world. Traditionally, they have been used. Traditionally, they are used in almost all the societies, and there are varieties of or multiplicities of channels that broadcast, multiple varieties of news. And when it comes to the sociolinguistic perspective on the use of these electronic media, from sociolinguistic perspective, they are very important in a couple of ways. That, for example, when I talk of radio and television, they are used for certain ideological purposes of language use. The first thing that I would talk about with reference to this is the use of radio and television for the promotion of standardized language or for the promotion of national language. Almost in every country of the world, television and radio broadcast their programs in the national language or languages, and in the standardized varieties of languages. They promote the standardized pronunciations, standardized vocabulary, and standardized structures of language as well, the syntax of language as well, through the programs, especially the formal programs such as for example, formal talk shows or news programs, etc. Television and radio, my dear students, are also used as medium. This electronic medium is used particularly for ideological purposes. They are used for state propaganda. And when I say for ideological purposes or for state propaganda, the kind of language that is used on them and the kind of programs that are presented on them, sociolinguistically, they are very important to examine because they show how a kind of hegemony is created through them, how a certain kind of power is exerted by the government or by the rulers in this case, and how, a certain linguistic ideology also is created. When we move on to the use of internet, I think the use of internet is unprecedented in today's world. There is no comparison with the past. The use of internet in the past was very limited as compared to it is used in the modern world, and the use is so much that this particular form of internet, media actually, which has emerged as social media, it needs to be dealt with separately in detail. It is very interesting that the list that I have shared with you of the types of electronic media, it includes smartphones and electronic display advertisings. Now, I have included these because, as you are traveling on the roads, even in developing countries like Pakistan, when you are traveling on the roads of big cities, you would notice these electronic, display, boards that, the billboards that would have the electronic advertisements of different products. So, this is how this electronic media has connected the society to, to different, stakeholders in the society. This is how, the business, the domain of business is connected to the buyers, and how, even on the road, they are, provided both through the linguistic and non-linguistic input that is given through these electronic billboards. They are provided with new information. They are motivated to buy this stuff that is advertised. As far as smartphones are concerned, this quick access to internet through them, this use of various apps and websites that connect us with people. You would always notice people, doing WhatsApp or doing, Snapchat, and, all that goes on through these smartphones. So, smartphones in themselves have become a source that is used for this whole electronic media, communication. Audio video tapes are also an important part, and they are particularly used in all the formal, academic, and official scenarios. Well, my dear students, when it comes to the traditional television and radio as electronic media, there has been a lot of studies in sociolinguistics that have studied the influence of television on the linguistic choices of people, the influence of radio on for example, the pronunciation of people in different societies. And as the results showed, even if one does not agree that there is a strong influence, the language pronunciations, the vocabulary, and the syntactic structures that are used in different programs of this media, they have a strong impact on the language choices of people. This traditional media is also significant in the sense that in all those underdeveloping and underdeveloped countries, where, people are not literate, these are the mediums that are used to have access to them, to provide them entertainment, to do propaganda, the state propaganda, to control their ideologies through that. And how all this is done, certain linguistic structures are repeatedly used, certain meanings are connoted to certain words on this media, which then is interpreted by people. They start interpreting it in the same way. So, when we look at the traditional perspective of how this relationship of electronic media and society exists, from the sociolinguistic point of view, it is a two-way process where this media affects the society, whereas society also affects the media when it comes to making the language choices. However, beyond the notions of influence and affect, the linguistic practices, when we talk of how do people use it, on media, when it comes to the linguistic practices, that is the ways of using it. Also, they are shifted to the people, and the result is the binary process that people who look at, who experience this media, who listen to radio, or for example, watch television, they would do the same practices in the same ways. Whereas the social practices of using language are reflected in this media.